October, and there was 3 sections I think the school board really wanted us to take a look at, or a couple sections I'd say. Was section C, section E, and I think section H. So the highlighted language is updated, or not updated, excuse me. The highlighted language is something to consider, which is similar to the policy at Oyster River. We can use some of that language, or we can do our own language, or stick to the language we have, or change some of the language we have. Other parts of the policy we can do as well.
As far as C goes, I think the highlighted area is fine.
What are the changes that are so they don't have to know? Yep.
I almost want to strike and just make it just flat a student. It doesn't necessarily need to be who has identified as transgender. It's so that way it's across the board for any student. If they want to be addressed by a pronoun or a name that corresponds with their identity, it shouldn't be because they're transgender or I don't know how to explain that.
So it's just a blanket statement.
Right.
A student under this policy has the right to be addressed by a name or pronoun that corresponds to the student's gender identity that is consistently asserted at school. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of goes along with even nicknames. Throughout school, I was known as Nin, not Jen. That's what I'm referred to in all my documents, everything.
But doesn't that dictate what the student can and can't say now? I mean, that's the only problem with it is now, I understand maybe it's not intended to be core speech, but you have an issue then if you say, well, child A can only say this, and then now you're going to punish the child when Barrett versus West Virginia's school board about the Pledge of Allegiance, you can't make a child say the Pledge of Allegiance, so you can't make a child say anything because then you don't know that you're not coercing their thinking.
Well, that's in the next section, though, as far as intentional and persistent. I'm just talking about a child has the right to be
Sure, but I think that falls along, then it becomes where's the line stop at that point? So, I mean, as much as you're trying to be respectful for your student, and by all means, I don't want anybody discriminated against, I think that just has constitutional issues. I know that's brought up by others. I mean, that's a big problem because then, today we say it's just this, tomorrow it becomes that. I mean, like I said, you're not even allowed to make a student say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore. So how can you tell a student what words they can or cannot use? And then you're going to actually go forward with punishment. And I'm not aware of the school being able to.
All this is saying is that they have the right to be addressed by what they're identified as.
in that specific the very first paragraph under C is what we're discussing. So that's not dictating that a student has to address you that way. That's that's stating that you have the right to be addressed that way. But I actually have it in my notes to talk about the next paragraph as well.
Okay.
The problem, as I see it, is that the school board is, and I keep bringing this up, and I still haven't gotten an answer after 2 school board meetings and 3 right-to-know requests. So just to let you know, I will be going to Superior Court for refusal to answer the question. You are assuming that the school board has the power, because governments have power, individuals have rights, but you are assuming that your board, of which you are members, have the power to declare a new right upon a single individual that then forces a legal obligation on others to call them by certain words, either pronouns or names. My right to know has been consistently, because we are a Dillon's right state, you cannot do anything as a political subdivision of the state without authorizing legislation. So my question, once again, is where does the school board derive the power to grant a new right? Because without that, you can't do anything that's in Part C, especially in the next paragraph, where you are now saying that if you do not follow this, you are going to get cited and violated. So there's a punishment associated with this.
So you have a right to be called Mr. Murphy. You
No, I don't have a right.
Well,
I don't. That's not what a right is. A right is something that is innate because of somebody's humanity. I don't need government to say I have a right. You cannot bestow a right, it just exists. But you also, as a school board, don't have the right, in the way that this is worded, to provoke coerced speech, and that's what these two paragraphs are doing. That's where a lot of people are upset. You are
we
making
haven't even
yourselves a
gotten
speech
to the
police.
second paragraph yet.
Well,
In our schools currently, if a student wants to be, if a student's name is James and wants to be called Jimmy, we make that happen, Dr. Peter.
yes.
If a student name is Oscar, but all of a sudden wants to be called David, can we make that happen? Do we make that happen in our schools, Anthony?
We do.
And if we have students that are called Sam but want to be called Susie, we make that happen in our schools. So I think we're under that first paragraph that's highlighted. If you say what Lynn is proposing, a student under this policy has the right, or maybe the word right is the one that we need to work on changing. But under this policy, a student will be addressed by a name or pronoun that corresponds with the student's gender identity or consistently asserted at school. That happens in our schools right now. But we're not saying or doing anything in this policy that is not already happening in our schools.
Yeah, I think there's just there's a line where you're trying to say, let's be respectful to everybody.
Right, we do
And there's
want
a
to be
difference in
respectful.
putting in a policy and mandating it, because that's what you're doing by putting in a policy, you're putting a written order in. And if we're just trying to be respectful, then we're gonna have a ton of things that we need to add. So my opinion is that just as core speech, it goes against.
So what would be the alternative so that we can be respectful of people that do want to be called by a different name?
I think just continuing with the programs that you have, I don't see the reason why this needs to be in the policy. It just seems kind of.
So that if somebody who hates transgender people is a teacher, they are not allowed to consistently bully the transgender child by misgendering them.
And they shouldn't.
That is why it is here.
And I agree, but then this is also then covers the students as well. And I mean, you can't, with that said, I mean, as much as, no, I would never want somebody to bully somebody, but this, again, I'm trying to be forward thinking. If this passes, if you pass this part of it today, then what's gonna happen later down the line? I mean, that's.
Later down the line, then teachers will have to respect the gender identity of students and have to respect their chosen name.
And
That's
I'm not
what
saying
will
they
happen.
not respect it, because you can't.
That's what will happen is with this policy is that teachers will have to respect it, and if they're bullying a transgender child, then there will be recourse.
But this goes beyond the transgender issue. and
Well,
that's where
not
we
right
have
here,
the issue.
not this paragraph.
But this is now dictating policy for the school. And now we're going to say again, back to what Skip had said, now we're dictating.
A right has very specific legal definitions. I would suggest that you use something akin to courtesy, where it is voluntary. Because as the superintendent pointed out to somebody else's questioning, if I just come in off the street onto school property, this policy is going to cover me, even though I'm not a student, I am not a staff, I'm a member of the general public. And yet I will be forced to use language that the school has declared to be permissible and not to use speech which is, because of the word right, dubbed not permissible. That's not right, and that's where you run into the constitutional issues.
I think what Nin was trying to say is, correct me if I'm wrong, if Ray is transgendering to a man and wants to be called Steve, but Anthony, I'm talking with students, this has happened. This is not the first time we have worked with transgender families, but Anthony has a real problem. I don't want to call him Steve. The simple answer is that don't call him anything. You just can't keep calling him Ray, because he does not want to be called Ray anymore. And to keep doing that would be harassment. It's just like if my name was Gwendolyn, teacher reads out first day of school, Gwendolyn Smith here, please call me Wendy. And if kids, and that's what she wants to be called, but kids keep calling her Gwendolyn just to get under her skin, that's a problem. It's not that we're forcing, I can't force Anthony to call him Steve, but I can say, don't call him Ray, because that's what we're calling for. It is common courtesy. It is, it's the old adage, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all type of thing. That's the way I think that's what you were
Right,
saying.
and it's across the board. It's not
Right.
just transgender students that I'm referring to. It's across the board, like all students.
Right, I want kids to call me Mr. Sawyer, even though my name is Peter John Sawyer. And if a kid can't call me Peter, then I'm going to have an issue with that.
Croc TV.